We are in the men's pre-quarterfinal matchup here at the USA Ultimate College Championships, where the Washington Sundodgers are taking on University of Massachusetts Zoodisc. I'm Emmy Fitzgerald, joined by Trent Dillon, and both of these squads having to fight through a lot of adversity. Only one loss apiece. We did see UMass play Carleton in the first round of play yesterday. They lost 15-6. And then Washington, right in the round right before this, lost to Pitt 15-11. But both teams really eager to advance on into the quarterfinal matchup. Trent, what do you think Washington really needs to do to come out early, get that first score? So that pull is floating and the game is underway. Washington to receive, starting on offense. Stephen Benelow over to Nick Roberts. Three handlers back. Lucas Chen kind of coming underneath out of the handler spot. And diving catch is good for Roberts. Underneath to Chen. And you have some Washington cutters going deep, but from the same third. So instead, Washington electing to either swing the disc or go under. Lucas Chen with a high grab. And a call on the field, tapped back in. Strike up the line, but instead resetting to Benelow. Over the top to Roberts. Tight person defense from UMass. Continuing, Johnson. So much patience from Washington. Throwing to space. Benelow to Roberts. And the end zone shot is good. Washington puts the first points on the board. That's Jake Steen.
Strong chemistry and trust on display there from Peter Johnson to Stephen Benelow. Benelow noticing that Graham played him a little off and had the ability for Johnson to throw a pass out to space. Eventually continues to Nick Roberts, who punches in for the score.
So Washington will maintain the hold, and UMass walking it back. And in that offensive set, we saw that those same third huck looks were not taken. In the warm-ups, we heard Mark Burton yelling to the players on the team, don't throw your hucks down the sideline, throw it so they end up in the middle, throw it so they end up in the middle. Tina Booth, on the other hand, really well-known force in Ultimate who coaches the UMass team. So interesting philosophies, really, from both coaching staffs.
Right, two very experienced coaches. Mark Burton has had a huge impact on this team just recently, joining in his first year, and Tina Booth, longer tenure here at UMass, but certainly also in the Boston area community.
So Washington will pull. This will be UMass's first offensive possession. There's the pull. Immediately Tanner Johnson goes deep. Instead, handler reset. Johnson goes all the way back to the disc. However, pick called.
Tanner Johnson, a very dynamic player, the ability to receive deep, also a really great thrower as well. University of Washington electing to go with Reed Hendrickson to start on him. Hendrickson, a dominant athlete in his own right. We'll see how he fares in this first point.
So Johnson will go back so Hendrickson can reset his position. And Merowitz McMahon has the disc, but another pick called downfield. Pretty common with a vertical stack offense.
Very common, yes.
Almost checked back in. Faked me out there.
And now we're in, oh.
And the swing incomplete. So Washington looking for their opportunity for the first break. Hendrickson, far sideline, a foul called.
Great layout block there from sophomore Porter Jones. Really trusted handler defender here on this team. Look for him to have an impact in the handler set throughout this game.
Come on, so get a hand on
Check
it.
back in. Quick reset to Murad. Back to Hendrickson. Strike.
Yeah!
And Tanner Johnson was close enough. It looks like Hendrickson called a foul.
That was good, D.
Looks like Tanner possibly admitting that there was contact, but trying to make the argument that the throw is out of Hendrickson's reach. Let's take a look.
So Hendrickson with a step ahead. Going to the observer. The observer is ruling no foul. They seem to agree with you.
Yeah, seemed to signal that it was just out of Hendrickson's reach, which is pretty high considering how tall he is.
Yes, Hendrickson at 6'3". Underneath, Johnson, also tall receiver. He puts that floating up in the air, and that is a score. First points of the game, Eddie Scott.
Great throw from Johnson there after churning in isolation. We're seeing the beginnings of what could be a very exciting matchup between Hendrickson and Johnson here.
And what kind of angle did Johnson really need to put on that throw to stay in bounds for his receiver?
So we've actually got kind of a favorable wind here. In the regular camera screen, the wind is going from the far side of the field towards our perspective. So Johnson did a really nice job of sitting that out in the wind and letting the wind take care of the rest so that Eddie could run onto it. Really nice acknowledgement of the wind there. If the wind was pressing out, that throw would not have worked.
So one apiece here in this first half of play. UMass will pull to Washington. UMass most recently beat Stanford 15-7. Stanford having kind of a rough day. Their Callahan finalist, Gabe Hernandez, played with his torn ACL yesterday, but was not playing today.
That's a tall order. I don't think that many of us have the experience of playing on a torn ACL in a tournament before. I certainly don't. So kudos to him and what he's trying to accomplish this weekend.
I don't envy him at all in that position, but Gabe is a person with a lot of heart. So you can understand why. Back in play, the pull is veering right and is caught out of bounds.
Centering up to Stephen Benelow here. Really kind of explosive and quick University of Washington handler. Look for him to get a high amount of touches and when necessary deliver accurate deep passes.
Checked in. Vertical stack. Washington cutting off of the front of the stack for that initiation.
Here we go, who wants it? Get a hand on it.
Johnson with the disc. Under to Roberts. Pick called.
Peter Johnson doing work so far in this game, the 6'4" freshman, running around like he's got a fresh set of legs.
That is hard to imagine, having a fresh set of legs in the last round of play.
Peter's figured out a way to do it, huh?
Somebody put in his track workouts. Manny Eckert. And despite the tip, it is good. Michael Boyko. Washington up 2-1 in this first half.
So far, relatively clean offenses here late in the day. Interesting to see.
And even though UMass had a play You always keep tracking that disc as long as it's in bounds.
So Emmy, earlier in this tournament, you saw UMass take on Carleton Cut in pool play. If I understand correctly, that game didn't go so great for UMass. What do you think they're looking to improve on? What do you think you can expect to see here in today's game?
In that game, the swings around were really challenging for UMass. The wind possibly playing a factor, especially as they were trying to throw those backhands around to our near sideline, getting popped up in the wind, and then Carleton, so efficient on offense, will put it away. On a good team, if you give them the opportunity, they'll take it. Can't always expect to have it back. But it seemed like that was the first game of the tournament for UMass, and since then, they've won one out to get here today.
So a strong rebound here from UMass. And so far, they look pretty good on those swings and execution today, so let's see if they can continue that.
There's the pull. Center to Radek. Johnson puts up the backhand, and a little too much. Eddie Scott caught the first goal for UMass. He's saying, my bad.
Gabe Ross in pursuit on the defense there.
So coming back up to pick up is Morad. Immediately from the one, Chen goes deep. So we see a switch. Hendrickson with the disc. Johnson was previously matched up on him. Let's see if they switch back. Johnson staying in the deep space. And that pass was ruled out. Johnson there to pick up. Radek underneath to Johnson. Gaining more yards underneath, Merowitz-McMahon. Barron over to Scott.
Oh, nice grab.
Nice release point from Johnson to Merowitz-McMahon. And despite the extension, too much. Hendrickson fakes deep, dishes instead. Strike up line, Roberts.
There we go, Sue.
Continues to Ross. Hendrickson up to space to Morad.
Let's go, Sue. Get a
Chen.
hand on him.
Now Washington approaching the red zone, opportunity to go up two. That continue around is in. There's Hendrickson with the goal.
Great full team effort by that Washington D-line offense there. Late in the day, multiple turn point. Players taking the extra effort to pump fake the more challenging deep looks and fight for up lines and unders. That's encouraging to see if you are University of Washington coach Mark Burton.
Really nice toe placement from Hendrickson.
Yeah, got up there and made sure to come down in the end zone.
So Washington going up by 2 early.
And important to note, that's probably considered an upwind break here. The wind kind of moving diagonally a little bit here.
And Trent, you were watching the Pitt-Washington game previously, but saw the score. And what do you think, coming off of a loss to end pool play and then going into bracket, what kind of mental fortitude does Washington really need to employ here to keep it going?
Yeah, well, at this point in the tournament, in the pre-quarter round, this is the first time that your back will truly feel against the wall, where you really know that the loser of this game is going home, or at least out of contention for a championship. So you really hope that those kind of extra juices, that extra motivation comes into play and gets you through this game.
So UMass looking to put their second point on the board. A lot of height, and Blade from the pole is up in the air, but It's caught. Johnson. Barron looking for the dump. He'll find it in Mishkind. Over to Merowitz-McMahon.
Great backfield matchup going on here between University of Washington's Porter Jones and number 5, Jacob Raddick. Raddick appears to be a primary handler here for the UMass offense. Porter Jones giving him everything he can.
So disc being checked back in. Flick Huck. Johnson, one-handed reception. Looks for the hammer, and he finds it. A little bit of delayed celebration there from Eddie Scott. Scott gets his second goal and UMass's second point.
And you see the trust there from UMass player Patrick Barron. Sees Tanner Johnson out in space open and delivers a pass where he can make a play at it. Wasn't the best throw, but Johnson takes advantage and comes down with it.
So Washington still up by 1. UMass needs a break to tie it up. While Washington does not have a national championship under their belt so far, UMass has won. Can you guess what year it was?
I'm not going to lie, I had no idea that UMass had won a national championship. I would guess 1997.
1986.
Oh, wow.
And kind of a junkies zone look from UMass.
UMass known for having a reliable zone here. Looks like 2 players pressed quite close against the disc with another 2 further back in somewhat of a curved 4-person cup, as we can see a 5th coming in from the wing. Certainly a dynamic look that Tina Booth has often employed.
Even Carleton, one of their preparations for the UMass round was working on their zone offense, knowing that UMass would present really interesting zone looks like what we're seeing here. Washington with the swings, now far sideline. Roberts keeping it alive. Swinging across, Eckert. Back to Morad. Roberts. Swing continue to Chen. Inside, Eckert. Finds an opening upfield. Porter Jones to Roberts. Resets to Jones. Washington finding some openings in the cup to give that give and go on the far sideline. Looking for the reset. Right back. Trent, what's really working with the Washington zone offense right now?
Right now, the handler experience of Stephen Benelow, Manny Eckert, Nick Roberts, and Lucas Chen is paying off. They're confidently looking downfield and setting each other up with easy bailout options once they know that they're not going to be able to zip it through. Also doing a good job of not losing too many yards on their swings. When they get it around, they're making sure to gain a net positive yards.
And really working the swings.
Above all else, we're seeing a really high degree of composure from these University of Washington handlers. Not taking the risky one-shot fixes over the top, and instead being confident to work amongst themselves to work it down with safe looks.
Layout by Grauman. But Washington maintaining possession.
Need to give credit to this UMass zone. The pass count is getting really high here, and the more passes you throw, the more likely it is there's going to be a slip up.
So Washington in the red zone, UMass staying in the zone look, finds an opening, and that's a Washington score. Michael Boyko.
Really great patience from Manny Eckert there on the goal line. Gets the disc in a position where he knows he's going to be able to attack and potentially finishes. Nice pump fake and finds the wide open player in the back of the end zone.
So many throws. Be interested to see what the stat sheet says.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point, you know. On the one hand, University of Washington came away with the point and ended up getting the hold, but it's getting pretty windy out here, and that many throws, a zone point of that many throws, who knows if that continues, if the Zoodisc zone will get turnovers out of that.
Throwing while fatigued is certainly a skill that is learned. We hear about players running a sprint workout, and then at the end, when they're completely tired, having to throw.
That's another thing too, Emmy. You know, it's definitely one thing to simulate the fatigue, but also combined with what's on the line and the pressure and everything going on, it's certainly a different mental state. But you know, most coaches definitely have a game plan for how to address such a vital skill as throwing while tired, or in these critical moments late in the game or a day.
So Washington will go up 2 in this first half.
Derek Murad delivering some pretty monster pulls here so far in this first half. This is a downwind one that he puts right in the back middle of the end zone.
So Tanner Johnson not able to take his first look. Then he goes to Radek. Barron to Scott. And run through D. Washington set up in good field position to get a break and go up by 3 if they score here. Gets off the around. Near sideline. There's the swing, high pointed. Kregenow is there. Over to Morad. Lots of control. Landa looks for Peter Johnson. And that is a break for Washington.
Johnson with a very well-timed cut on that end zone, attacking to the inside break at the perfect time to set him back up to come to the fore side for an even easier throw. Great composure and work from Derek Murad there as well in the end zone.
And Murad really employing those low release points. How does that really help in the conditions here?
Very important, especially when throwing to the far side of the field, again, from the perspective of the camera. The wind is sort of blowing across in that direction, so when you're throwing up wind, you kind of want to have a lower release on that. Derek definitely capitalizing on that as he throws the around space.
Gives that additional control. Tanner Johnson, though, working very hard on defense, staying close by. Certainly an integral part of UMass on offense and defense.
Absolutely, and much of this game could come down to his shoulders. He's taking on pretty big matchups on the turn and playing a heavy role in the offense. A lot of trust going on to Tanner Johnson's back right now, and it'll be interesting to see how he responds.
So UMass with the opportunity on offense to take it within 2. Be sure to leave a comment. Let us know where you are and who you're rooting for. We've had some fun, close games on the stream all day today. That pull is sailing and lands out of bounds. So Radek will take it from the brick mark.
Washington looks to have a zone unit out on the field at this point. Perhaps a specialized unit on this Mark Burton squad.
Johnson around to Merowitz McMahon. Continuing, Grauman. Staples, far sideline. Merowitz McMahon. And UMass finding a bit of an opening, trying to gain more yards. And there's Brett Grauman with that strike and score.
Great downwind offense there from Zoodisc. I'm certain that they're used to seeing zone at practice. So perhaps the zone look there from the University of Washington wasn't anything too new for them.
That's a really good point. UMass known for their zone, but they have to practice against somebody. So who better to practice their zone offense than UMass?
Absolutely. And then great nose to the end zone from Brett Graham there on the transition. Great time to capitalize and try and get a quick strike before UW can get into their person-to-person red zone defense.
So, Trent, we have folks tuning in from all over the place. Hawaii and a Carleton player rooting for UW. We have some folks watching from Sydney, Australia that you might know.
Yes, Chris Kocher watching from Sydney, Australia.
Jimmy Mickle there with him too, so he says.
Let's hope so.
Where in the world is Jimmy Mickle? Nobody really knows.
Probably Sydney.
Probably Sydney with Chris Kocher. Back in Milwaukee, Washington 5, UMass 3. Washington going on a couple 2-goal runs to give them that lead. The pull will go out of bounds in pretty much the same place as the pull went the last point.
Right, this diagonal wind kind of giving a little bit of grief on these upwind pulls.
So Washington will take it from the brick mark. Arad over to Roberts. To Eckert. Underneath, Chen. Benelo to Steen. And getting in there is Alex Donadio. So this gives UMass a break opportunity to take it within 1. Grauman underneath to Bartoli. Donadio swings around to Grauman. Grauman shoots in the end zone and not quite enough for LaRue.
A knifing throw to that inside lane. With the wind coming kind of into the direction of the throw, you figure that you can put a little bit more oomph on it. Still a little bit too much from Grauman there as it sails out toward the back cone.
So Benelo will walk up to the front cone, taps in. And diving break continue. Here's the hammer. It stays in bounds. Gives Washington the other side of the field to work. Finds space underneath. Resetting to Benelo. There's Chen. Activates his handler. Benelo getting up. Shooting for the end zone. And two-handed grab, Jake Steen.
Great second effort there from the University of Washington O-line, coming back after a turnover to work it all the way down the field. Really good patience and composure from Stephen Benelo.
So Washington will answer back. And a lot of height from Jake Steen, who is already tall at 6'2".
Yeah, well, having height is one thing, knowing how to use it is another, and Jake Steen did a great job there going up early, making no chance for the defender to make a play.
So Washington takes the 3-goal lead.
And we've seen a couple of downwind holds the last few points here. we'll have to see if someone can crack the code before half and net another upwind break.
What do you think is the key to get that upwind break?
I think continued applied pressure, right? Definitely taking away the deep spaces, it's easier to attack the deep, but if you can force the team to throw into narrow windows in this wind, it doesn't matter whether you're going up or downwind. Definitely something you can capitalize on. Pulling is also important. Let's see how Murad does on this pull. He's been doing pretty well on the upwind pulls so far.
Pull's so crucial. There's Murad. Adjusting from the last couple of pulls we've seen in this direction. This lands in. Johnson for UMass. He'll find Barron. Barron winds up, sees Johnson. Johnson with eyes on the disc and is inbounds for the goal.
Johnson burning Reed Hendrickson deep on that play. And that just goes to show how dynamic of a player he is. He basically gets the center and immediately releases. Great awareness from the rest of the Zoodisc team, knowing that he has that separation in space, and allowing UMass player Patrick Barron to deliver a throw without any interruption from help defenders.
What kind of acceleration do you have to dish it and then still catch the huck from the person you just threw it to?
You know, it requires a good bit of acceleration, but not nearly as much as it requires for a player like Reed Hendrickson, who's on the mark, to then turn and continue with Tanner. So I'd say that Reed Hendrickson might have been looking for support from some of his teammates there after that release. Something that University of Washington might want to look out for if Tanner's continuing in the handler set and releasing downfield.
That's a good point. Defensively, it's a completely different mindset guarding a handler defense versus that cutter downfield where your hips are positioned.
Right.
So Washington still with a 2-goal lead. They have 6, UMass 4. Half is at 8.
UMass running out of opportunities to cut into this lead before the half sets in.
So there's the pull. Both teams making adjustments from the out-of-bounds pulls we saw earlier. And right away, it's Benelo to Chen. And Chen skies and catches. He gets the score.
Lucas Chen, similarly to Tanner Johnson on the previous point, taking off deep from the handler set. Really hard to guard if there's no help from the stack. Quite a deep vertical stack. Any of these UMass players might have been able to apply a switch or apply additional help. Didn't quite happen.
Lucas Chen getting up, one of the best of the best of the best.
Yeah, certainly. A very dynamic player for Washington. He has the chops to be able to handle and composure and break markability, but he's also been utilized as a cutter as well. And it showed there from a great throw from Stephen Benelo.
So Washington has 7. If they get a break here, they take half. Coach Mark Burton giving some pointers to Hendrickson with a tough defensive assignment today.
Absolutely, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how Reed responds here on this additional chance against likely Tanner Johnson, assuming that they go first in the first in here.
Burton, of course, a leader in his club team, Seattle Mixtape, the defending club champions.
Definitely a student of the game, that Mark Burton.
He knows a thing or two.
Loves his X's and O's.
So there's the pull from Murad. And goes back out. Wind did get a bit gustier.
Absolutely. I'll bet that Murad wishes he held a little bit more inside edge on that pull, just like the one prior. We'll see if UMass can capitalize on this brick mark possession. Johnson out in isolation in what seems like a horizontal stack.
And the isolation play worked to get Johnson the disc right off the bat. He goes deep again. There is a pick call.
This time a little bit of traffic in the deep space. The UMass cutters weren't quite so well orchestrated to leave that space open for Johnson. Perhaps Hendrickson noted that and played a little bit underneath.
So disc back in. Horowitz, McMahon. Washington forcing towards this near sideline. The flick goes up and it is good. Barron to Johnson. Johnson looking for Merowitz, McMahon. He tracks it right in.
Great knifing throw from Johnson there as Merowitz, McMahon sneaks over deep.
So UMass taking it within 2 in this first half.
University of Washington just needs one hold and send it into the half.
So they will receive the pull and start on offense on this next point.
And as we mentioned, the last few points have been all chalk here, so University of Washington should be pretty confident in their ability to get this downwind break. They've been playing good offense, not turning it over much, and really using what the wind can provide to threaten deep, and either throwing those hucks or coming open under with an easy advantage.
Get a longer break at halftime. Definite benefit, and from a momentum perspective, to take half. So UMass with the pull. We've seen some veer out right, allowing favorable yardage that the teams have been taking advantage of. This one is more flat, will stay inbounds, caught. Benelo over to Chen.
A vertical stack look here from the University of Washington, appearing to be slowed down from somewhat of a junk or clam thrown by Zoodisc.
Chen gets it into power position, but keeps it over to Benelo. Continuing, Roberts. Underneath, Eckert resets to Roberts. Eckert back open in the handler space. There's Benelo. Underneath to Chen. That strike and fill. Benelo. Chen. Tall grab. Washington in their end zone set. Laser flick to the end zone, and Manny Eckert is there.
Great play from Manny Eckert so far this half. We've seen him really do it all, going downfield and gaining separation, being composed in the handler set, in the red zone, and in zone offense. Does a nice job of getting a little bit of separation for this inside flick here.
Sliding catch for Manny Eckert, the 6'2" junior. That score will take Washington to half. They are up by 3. They have 8, UMass 5. So we are going to take a quick break, and when we return, we will have the second half of play. I'm Emmy Fitzgerald with Trent Dillon. You're watching the USA Ultimate College Championships. Yeah.
Oh, Monty, oh my lord.
Am I right?
Wherever, just make me move.
Hey, don't be mad you got beat by a ball, kid. Yeah, you.
Welcome back to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're at halftime, where University of Washington Sundodgers are currently up at the half versus University of Massachusetts Zoodisc. I'm Emmy Fitzgerald with Trent Dillon. And Trent, exciting first half so far. What has Washington really done well to get this 3-goal lead?
Washington did a great job of capitalizing to get a few early upwind breaks to put them ahead here on Zoodisc. But since that point, it's really been kind of a back and forth of offensive holds to the downwind side. So in the second half, it's really going to come down to who can apply the most defensive pressure on those downwind points and then efficiently punch in the upwind break.
So UMass needing some breaks to tie it up.
Coming out on offense here should be nice to kind of get their feet underneath them, get moving again out of half, and then settle in for work on the defensive side.
This the pre-quarterfinals match. The winner will go on to play quarterfinals in the morning. Pre-quarterfinals, typically the second and third place finishers in pool play. First place finishers in pool play get the bye and get to go straight to quarters. The benefit of the bye seems obvious, but very valuable.
Yeah, historically thought of as a very significant benefit is I believe prior to 2016, no pre-quarters team had made semifinals or finals. And that completely got flipped on its head in the last few years. And we've seen pre-quarters teams make deep runs in the bracket. So University of Washington and Zoodisc should certainly be optimistic about their placement right now.
So the poll goes up. Washington comes down on defense. Underneath to Johnson. UMass. That high release backhand. Over the top. Radek gets it back to Johnson. Around to Mishkind. There's a dish. Continuation. Johnson near sideline. Continues to Barron underneath. And there's a strike cut right away. UMass putting points on the board to start the second half.
Great systematic offense from Zoodisc there, really leveraging and using the front of the stack in their vertical stack offense. Some easy inside breaks to get into the break side, swing around to the force, and really had the University of Washington defense on their heels the whole time throughout that point. Really representative of what we saw late in that first half when teams had a really easy time scoring in that downwind end zone. University of Washington going to step it up if they want to get one of those upwind breaks.
So now the game within 2. Washington, though, will get the disc. And UMass known for their zone looks. Do you think if you're the coach, do you think you're going to throw a zone here?
Possibly, you know. University of Washington didn't beat it quite so quickly the last time. Required a lot of throws going to the upwind end zone. Things could perhaps be different going to the downwind side, where actually in a zone offense, when you're going downwind, those reset throws, a lot of those yardage losing throws are to the upwind space. So it could be a significant benefit to try and go zone here in the second half for Zoodisc.
So to pull is Eugene LaRue. Sometimes teams having trouble to keep the pull in bounds. This one will stay in bounds though. And Benelo for Washington to Murad. Resets to Benelo. Continuing, Nick Roberts on the far sideline. There's Benelo. Chen's going under. Another receiver going deep. And there's a hand block, but Murad still manages to catch it. Gets it off the line to Eckert. And UMass in-person defensive set And with steps into the end zone, Washington answers. Nick Roberts with the score.
Great downwind shot there from Rod out of a bit of stagnation in that University of Washington vertical stack. Also saw him heavily featured in that startup play as the vertical stack separated and left him isolated in the middle of the field. Murad switching over to the offensive unit after playing a lot of defensive points. Interesting to see if that's kind of a deliberate or perhaps permanent move from the University of Washington coaches to hold on to this lead they've secured for the second half.
So UMass answering right away, keeping their lead to 3. They have 9, UMass has 6. It is a game to 15. And with bracket play, there is still more live coverage. There are 22 live streams, 22 games being live streamed this weekend between USA Ultimate channels and Ultiworld. Then tomorrow, the coverage switches for the semifinals. We still have some quarterfinals on USA Ultimate and Ultiworld, but then the semifinals will be live on ESPNU, the ESPN app, and ESPN3. And then the finals will be live on those same channels from ESPN on May 28th. So the pull is good and caught. Raddick over to Barron. Johnson looking right away. And greatest attempt, and then deflected. Thought Eddie Scott, if his angle had been a little bit different, maybe he could have caught it.
Great defense there from Reed Hendrickson. After Patrick Barron initiated the offense with an in-cut, it's easy to be on your heels and give up a deep look to Johnson. Instead, forcing him for a small yardage gain, and instead forcing a huck to the handler, Jacob Raddick.
So the greatest attempt was actually out of bounds, so that's why the disc is checked in at the front cone. Scuba over the top is good. Washington trying to work it out of UMass's end zone. Hendrickson with the disc. Over to Landa, back to Hendrickson. Tight handler defense. There's Porter Jones. Gabe Ross keeps it in bounds. Up the line to Jones. And Craigenow with the disc. Washington working it up the far sideline, but turns it over, gives UMass the opportunity to take it within 2.
Great heads-up D there from Dylan Monty, saving what could have been an upwind break.
Johnson with the huck. It's floating, and sky grab from Eddie Scott. That's a goal.
Great grab there from Eddie Scott as he elevates for the downwind hold. We've seen a number of hucks to Eddie so far. Really trusted as a deep receiver for this UMass team.
Eddie Scott with his 3rd point so far in the game. This 3rd goal considered the best of the best of the best for good reason.
Absolutely, yeah. The sophomore having a good impact on this pre-quarter game.
Eddie Scott from Lower Merion, Pennsylvania, playing club for the citywide open team. Going to college in fairly nearby Massachusetts. Things are much closer in general than Texas.
East Coast, yeah. It's all the East Coast.
So Washington still with a 2-goal lead.
Interesting to see what kind of defense we'll see from the University of Washington here. Or, sorry, the University of Massachusetts here. UW has been making quick work of their person-to-person defense. Perhaps could see a junk or zone look to slow those pull plays down.
The pull stays flat and inbounds, but an offsides call. Trent, explain the offsides, what it means for the offense versus the defense.
So when a team is pulling, no player on the defensive unit that is pulling can be over the line before the frisbee is released. That time the observer must have seen someone cross the plane prior to the disc coming out of the hand, and we have a repull. If it happens again, I believe the receiving team will take the disc at midfield.
So, second pull. It's centered to Benelo. Over the top to Steen. Resets to Eckert. Chen across the field. Give and go between Chen and Benelo before the defense gets set. Upline strike is Roberts. And he finds Jake Steen in the end zone for the score.
This University of Washington offense simply catching fire right now. Nick Roberts, Lucas Chen, Stephen Benelo, Manny Eckert, all doing their jobs, distributing the frisbee, moving it quickly, and approaching that end zone repeatedly, point after point.
Nice fakes. You see from Roberts.
Yeah, great shimmy to get the mark over, thinking that there might be an around break look when there really wasn't, to come right back to that inside. Experienced move there from Nick Roberts.
So whenever UMass can hold, Washington answers right back. But a couple breaks in the first half keeps Washington with a 3-goal lead. It's a game to 15. And the clock that you see is going to hard cap. So subtract 20 minutes from that. That's the time to soft cap. We'll keep you updated if that ends up affecting the game.
With how quickly these offensive possessions have been going, it doesn't seem to be that hard cap or soft cap will have an impact on this game. Eventually, though, to make it close, UMass is going to have to figure out what to do defensively to slow down this Washington unit and get those breaks back.
Lots of hang from the pull. And the pull is dropped. You could see Michigan was trying to shield the sun, held a hand up. So potentially that affected his line of vision. Now a break opportunity, and Washington takes it.
That's huge. That's a huge break for the University of Washington. Now Zoodisc is challenged and working their upfield and into the upwind end zone. If they can do that, they can possibly earn the break back on the downwind side. But to give up a break like that on a drop pull is certainly difficult. And it'll put this Zoodisc team's mental toughness at test here.
And certainly a lot of advantages to catching the pull, but it's also not easy. There's a lot of pressure on you.
Yeah, you know, when it's windy and the sun is coming in, you know, there's always a certain probability that you're going to drop it. But you know, I commend the receiver there for making an effort, because if you do catch it repeatedly, you gain an incremental advantage every time you do that. So didn't seem like too difficult of a catch. I'm sure if he had another chance, he would catch it just fine.
So Washington will pull Murad with the disc, who had the assist on this last point.
Critical to register this downwind break if you're the University of Washington. These downwind points have been severely easy, and if they can get another break here, they'll really put UMass at a disadvantage.
So high, the pull, it bounces, and UMass gets it in play right away. There's the huck. Great track down from Barron. Merowitz McMahon watching it in. Now red zone opportunity for UMass. And pick called.
Split.
Michigan with the disc. Checked back in. Scuber over to Barron. And straight end zone shot to Eddie Scott. That is Scott's 4th goal of the game.
Great play from UMass cutter Patrick Barron throughout that point. He's been a reliable startup cutter out of this side stack. Perhaps a lot of the focus for this University of Washington defense is going on to Tanner Johnson. Barron capitalizing by taking those one-on-one matchups and getting open deep and under at will. Solid throw there from Jacob Raddick, and they work it in and eventually find Scott in the end zone.
So UMass taking care of business there, needing to score fairly quickly, but now the challenge comes getting the break against what has been a very consistent Washington offense so far in this game.
And this will perhaps be a true or at least more interesting test of this University of Washington offense. Can they do what they've done going downwind on the upwind side? The pressure's on for Lucas Chen, Stephen Benelow, Manny Eckert, and Nick Roberts.
So UMass with the disc to pull.
And we see some of UMass's top offensive talent over for this defensive point. Perhaps taking now as their chance to get that much needed downwind break.
LaRoe with the pull. Lots of hustle from UMass getting downfield. There's Benelow over to Eckert. Resetting to Benelow. Another handler reset. Eckert underneath to Chen. Staying on the near sideline, Jones. Keeping it, Eckert. Now swinging it across, Benelow to Chen. Underneath, there's the layout bid. Chen catches it. Looking for the dump. Up line is Roberts. Swings to Chen. Now Benelow.
Lucas Chen, another one of these players that seems like he's got fresh legs right now. Really just charging around and finding those open release valves when the offense does stagnate.
So there was a pick call which stopped play momentarily. Benelow tap it back in. And outside, but a little help defense from UMass. Patrick Barron playing really well on both sides of the disc.
Great heads-up play from Barron. Throughout that point, we saw UMass peeling off the stack just like Barron did, perhaps not in ways that would get the D, but to deter that upline pass. Benelow fell into the trap there and threw to it, and Barron capitalized.
So now break opportunity for UMass. Barron to Johnson. Back to Barron. Merowitz McMahon with the disc, far sideline. Inside, flick to LaRoe. And a call on the field. Travel called. It appeared to be on LaRoe's throw, so it'll go back. And actually, it was on Solomon Merowitz McMahon. So the disc will stay with him. Up the line to Barron. Johnson And UMass gets a break. There's Chris Bartoli.
Again, great downwind offense from the Zoodisc team here. Unfortunately, Benelo fell into the trap of throwing into that upline space when there was a poacher after some really nice offense from the University of Washington. Also to note, we've been doing a lot of talking about the wind here. We haven't really talked about how strong it is. It's about 15 miles per hour, I'd say. Nothing unmanageable, but definitely making an impact on this game. And as we can see from a downwind break.
So UMass gets the break when they need it. They're down by 2, but that's not enough.
Yeah, they'll need another 3 breaks to end up winning this game. So their work is certainly cut out for them. They have plenty of time, but they'll need to do it on the upwind end.
So now that we're in bracket play, you win and you advance. If you don't, there's some placement seeding games.
Yeah, but I don't think either of these teams are just happy to be here, right?
Nope.
Nope. Yeah.
They wouldn't be here if they were just happy to be here.
Absolutely.
LaRoe with the pull. Out of bounds.
UMass returning to nationals after a semifinals appearance last year. University of Washington made it to the quarterfinals. So both these teams have their heights set high heading into the season.
An exciting quarterfinals match last year. Carleton versus UMass decided in double game point. Benelo checks it in for Washington. Now Chen with the disc. A call on the field. But Chen will check it back in. He's guarded by Johnson. Eckert to Chen. Strike cut, back to Eckert. Underneath Roberts. Looks for the around, instead goes back up line to Eckert, but pick called does not appear to affect the latest reception.
Again, these UW handlers doing a great job getting open up line, getting off safer rounds. The cutters as well, giving them plenty of space to work with in that backfield. Really nicely executed game plan by the UW offense.
So tight spaces, still successful. Roberts with the end zone shot. It's good for a score.
And this time it looks like defender Patrick Barron got caught for sneaking off into that upside lane. Great job by Roberts to recognize, not fall into the poach trap and hit the inside here.
So when UMass really needed a break to take it within 1, Washington answers with patience and a score to increase their lead to 3.
And UMass in a position that they're familiar with. They did a great job of getting these downwind holds in the first half and in the beginning parts of the second half. Save for that dropped pull, they have no reason to feel like they can't get this downwind hold.
So UMass 12, Washington 12, UMass 9. Washington 3 points away. UMass 3 points from tying. They will get the disc on offense. To pull for Washington is Derek Murad. And there's the pull. Catching it.
We see Barron isolated again.
He gets it underneath. Johnson immediately goes deep but uses that.
Great defense from Reed Hendrickson there, really figuring out this Tanner Johnson matchup.
So Johnson will get it in the throwing space, sending a backhand to Barron. A reset and continuation, stays in bounds. And Washington not taking a lot of time to score. That's Eddie Scott.
It didn't quite work out off the pull play with Johnson heading deep after Barron got the under, but eventually the cutter corpse of Eddie Scott, Patrick Barron, and Tanner Johnson figured it out and work in to get the downwind hold, as well as Jack Staples here delivering this pass.
Jack Staples available for that continuation on the break side, which then allowed him to find his teammate, Eddie Scott.
Great heads-up play from Jack there. Also from the Lower Marion area, actually a regional rival of Lower Marion High School where Eddie Scott went. So likely that those two competed against each other quite often in high school, which is always interesting.
It's always neat to see when rivals then become teammates.
Right.
And then the reverse, when teammates become rivals.
Either way, it's a beautiful thing.
So, 2-point deficit for UMass. Washington on offense. They will be on offense after the pull. We're about 12 minutes out from soft cap. And the big players from both teams really stepping up when they need to today.
Now's the time. Backs on the wall. This is all that's left.
Benelo with the disc. Scuber to Roberts.
And here we finally see another zone look from Zoodisc.
Chen on the sideline. It's always neat to see what all the different zone looks and what they're trying to take away, all slightly different. Scuber, second attempt, caught by Benelo. Breaks through to Chen. Benelo's there. Finds Chen. Roberts approaching the end zone. And Peter Johnson was holding up his hands because he was potentially unguarded, but that's kind of the throw that UMass is trying to bait.
Still, Johnson doing a good job of drawing the defender toward him by calling for it there. Possibly a wise move from the freshman.
Swing off the sideline, Benelo and Chen. And short giving goes. Nick Roberts with the goal, but a lot of patience from Washington to march it down the field.
And yet again, Nick Roberts, Stephen Benelo, Lucas Chen, and Manny Eckert guiding this team into the end zone. Really putting on a fantastic show in this pre-quarter round.
So much patience. And when you have a zone look like that, what are some tips that you have to kind of, as the thrower, to move that cup to be able to get a look?
Yeah, definitely need to be aware that there are multiple players that are looking at you, right? And your vision is going to direct where the defense goes. So just because you know you have an option open doesn't mean you need to look at it until you're ready to throw. And perhaps these University of Washington players knowing that, looking downfield, knowing they have an available option and kind of surveying what's around and then quickly and precisely moving it when needed.
Washington has 13, UMass 10. Game to 15. Winner will advance.
And we see what looks like might be a zone line here from the University of Washington. University of Washington assistant coach Dongyang Chen giving them the call as he walks off the line.
And Coy Wynn with the pull. UMass working it underneath. Barron And Johnson going deep right away. This time he has space, tracks it right in. That's a score.
And the handler dominance of the University of Washington matched by the cutter dominance of Patrick Barron and Eddie Scott and Tanner Johnson here. Nice isolation cut and then a pinpoint blade.
So Tanner Johnson with his third goal of the game.
Really difficult cut to defend there that Tanner Johnson just made, especially from the work that Patrick Barron made to set that up. Getting that slight yardage bump makes it much harder on the coverage there. Great timing and great chemistry from those two players.
So UMass in need of a break. Washington, as demonstrated a point ago, just showing so much composure and control, really sticking to their game plan. Getting some final words from their coach. So here's the pull. It hangs and stays in bounds. Benelo with the disc. Some distance between the stack and the handlers. Chen goes deep. One-on-one, it's floating. Defense goes up early. Chen gets the score.
Great read from Lucas Chen there. Donadio possibly shaken up on the play, but the goal secured nonetheless.
So Donadio slow to get up, helped by his teammates. And Donadio really had to catch up even to get there. Goes up early, but Chen with a great read.
That's good defense there from Donadio. You know, put pressure on that throw. Perhaps if it was a better thrown toss, Lucas Chen might have not had to go up to make the play. But as you noted, that vertical stack was quite deep. Manny Eckert had to put a lot of oomph on that pass to get it into the end zone. Lucas Chen's been pretty dominant around the disc, so I definitely commend Donadio for playing him underneath and forcing the huck there.
So Hendrickson has the disc to pull. If they can break, this is game point for Washington. UMass, though staying consistent on offense.
Struggle to register those upwind turns. That's been the theme for both teams this game since those early breaks that we saw. And here they have their backs against the wall. They need to go get this downwind hold, and then they have one more chance to get that upwind break they've been desperately needing all game.
So both sidelines really amped. The sideline, such an important factor, possibly more so than some other sports as well, where the players kind of stay on a bench or a dugout. In ultimate, the team moves with the disc on both sidelines. Barron with the disc, over the top to Johnson, sees a receiver downfield, and tracking it in is Merowitz McMahon. Quick score from UMass.
Solid defense there from UW defenders Reed Hendrickson and Gabriel Schmidt. Johnson just getting the disc, noting the marks a little sagged off and has the room to get off this break huck. Apologies, I think that was Max Land on the coverage, not Jacob Smith.
So UMass within 2. They need a break to tie it, but they're pulling to Washington, who's on offense. What has been working best for Washington in this game on offense?
Washington setting up that vertical stack quite deep, usually gaining a few yards off the full play, but it's really been all about the chemistry and the handler set between some of their more dynamic handler cutter combos. For this point, we see Murad coming over to the field, expecting to play a large role in this offensive unit here.
So a timeout called on the field.
Always interesting to know what's being said in a huddle like this.
Heard a great quote from the UConn women's basketball coach, quite the storied program, saying as a coach, he really gives what the team needs at the time. So it's not, and just like any great manager or leader would, it's not what he wants to say. Sometimes the team needs tough love. Sometimes they need a hug. Sometimes they need some motivation. And it's so neat to see the different leadership styles approaching coaching.
Absolutely, you've been building this familiarity all year. They've been in situations just like this, I'm sure, at tournaments. And now it's time to put it all out there and go for it.
And seeing the difference, the entire UMass squad together for the motivational talk. On the other side, separated out, is the 7 on the line, getting some encouraging words.
UW coach Mark Burton electing to just talk to the 7 players and sort out some X's and O's before what could be this final point.
So LaRoe pulling for UMass. Nice and flat. It's caught. Benelo with the disc. Isolation underneath to Murad. Back to Benelo. He'll reset to Murad. Up the line to Roberts. Swings to Murad. Chin gaining yards on the under. Striking Murad. Another strike from Chen. And looking for that around and continue. Here's Benelo. Michigan, UMass sealing the break side. And there's the continuation. It's a bid from Benelo, and that's the winning score.
Emphatic grab from University of Washington Callahan nominee Stephen Benelo to end this game.
And characteristically, just lots of patience down the entire field.
UW just dominant front of the stack cutting. The reset cutting, break mark throws, up lines have been on point this whole game. This unit of Stephen Benelo, Lucas Chen, Nick Roberts, Manny Eckert, Derek Murad essentially did the equivalent of a no-hitter in baseball or softball here today. Really impressive performance by them.
So Benelo being crowned for catching the game-winning score. They will advance on to the quarterfinals, defeating UMass by 3. An exciting game of Ultimate. They have 15, UMass has 12. And that will do it for our coverage on this Saturday. We hope you tune in tomorrow for continuing coverage of the college championships. For Trent Dillon, I'm Emmy Fitzgerald. You're watching the USA Ultimate College Championships, presented by Fulcrum Media.